Okay,
Oh,
can you see?
Okay. Oh, yes, look, I got it. Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
you
yeah.
gotta say got it. There you go.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Good, good.
can you see?
Yep, it's great now.
Okay, good.
Video.
So I am now in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. So we me and Pedro Acevedo, also from the Smithsonian, and Jacqueline Salazar, local botanist who visit the Smithsonian with a Cuatro Casas in a fellowship in 2018. We have been doing an expedition collecting samples for a global genome project mostly, which is documenting endemic plants, especially endemic genera from the Caribbean. Many of them are in the Dominican Republic. So we have been here for 2 weeks already, from November 24th, I think. Yeah, so for those of you who are not very familiar with the Caribbean islands, they are an archipelago about 7,000 individual islands, and there are four major islands which are called the Greater Antilles, which are Cuba, Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, Jamaica, and also the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos, which are the Lucayan archipelago, and the Lesser Antilles. And there are many small islands all around, associated to larger islands. And some 28 nations are included. Many of them are small islands, island nations, and some other are larger ones, like Cuba, Jamaica. In Hispaniola, the island is split in two countries. So the biota in the Caribbean is interesting because they have influence from multiple sources. So they have influence from North America, from Central America, and from South America. And through millions of years, these islands have been migrating from the Pacific plate and up to the Caribbean one. And they collide with the North American plate and then split. So islands have a complex geology. Some of them are islands that split, and some of them are islands that merge. They were individual islands for millions of years and then merge into larger ones. So many of the animals and plants were isolated, and then when they get connected, then you have areas of high diversity in individual islands because they reflect the previous history. And the islands are, because of the diversity and isolation, many groups are endemics, but there is high levels of deforestation and threatening. So they are considered one of the top 5 global hotspots of biodiversity. Many organisms are endemic, or they have high diversity islands, like so, including birds, reptiles, amphibians, and mammals also. And maybe you're familiar with some of these Eleutherococcus frogs. They are not endemic, but they have high levels of endemism. Ciclura are the rocky iguanas, they are endemic to the Caribbean. Cerebras are a warbler, and they are banana kids, and they are distributed across islands. They have many variation. Anoles, which are an example of evolution, they have been used as a model for decades. Solenodon is a sister to many mammals, and they have a unique phylogenetic position. They have a poison. I think it's the only placental with poisonous kids. Phageodontia are also rodents, frogs, birds, parrots. Many of them have been extinct in the last 500 years, but some of them are still around. And the flora is also very rich. there are about 205 families of native seed plants, including 17 endemic to the neotropics. But so far, none of the families are endemic to the West Indies. There are close to 1,500 genera of native plants, of which 178 are restricted to the Caribbean. And there are about 11,000 species of native seed plants. 72%, about 72% are endemic. And they include lineages like Espadea, which are in the Solanaceae basal tribe of trees. Most Solanaceae are herbs. This in the Caribbean, there are trees with showy flowers, tiny orchids, Cubanola is a rubiaceae with huge flower, also Portlandia, Ekmanianther bignoniaceae with very large flowers. I have a tree right here outside the window, very beautiful. Pereschia, leafy cactus, Cleodendron or basal angiosperms with strong aromatic compounds. Dendropino are mistletoes, and Getsy is also Solanaceae, which are large trees. Calicogonium are now Myconia, they're Melastomataceae. Isidorea is a rubiaceae. These are small shrubs. They are small shrubs with very showy flowers. Some of them are red and some other are yellow. And Bria are legumes, shrubs, and small trees. And in the profile, most of these endemic genera are represented by one species. It's like 48%. And 31% of them, they have from 2 to 5 species. 12% have 6 to 10 species. 11% have more than 10. And of these, only 3% have more than 20 species. So most of them are monotypic or very few, with few species. And the most numerous genera endemic to the West Indies are Dendropimon, which are mistletoe, which is a group I study, and also Leucoproton, which are Infrobiaceae. Scolosanthus are Rubiaceae. Walenia from Primrose family are small trees, some of them medium-sized small trees, and Fialanthus are also from Rubiaceae, are also like shrubs. And Hispaniola, about Hispaniola Islands, I don't know how many of you have visited Hispaniola, probably some of you. So Hispaniola is the second largest island in the West Indies, with about 76,000 kilometers square. You can see in the illustration, it has a centric position between North America, Central America, South America, and it's like in the middle of the Caribbean. So it received influence from many regions from South America. So it's the second most populated island in the West Indies. And it includes 2 countries, Haiti and the Dominican Republic is split. And it is the most geographically complex island in the Caribbean, which has the tallest mountain peaks, with Pico Duarte in the center, variable climates from a very dry forest with a high temperature to mountain forests which are very cold and can freeze. It's like from 90 Fahrenheit down to 62 hours. You can get all the range. And many habitats are in close proximity. They have dry forests, moist forests, flooded grasslands, savannas, wet mountains with pine forests. Some of them, they have unusual ecoregions, like high elevation dry forests, mixed pine forests with xerophytic shrublands. You can have cactus and pine forests in the same area. Salt lakes below sea level. I will show pictures of karstic nesting forests and serpentine forests. So the islands comprise 2 major paleo islands that collide. These islands, they were separated for millions of years, and then at some point they collide with the North American plate and they hit each other. So there is a geographic fault separating both of them still, but they have some land bridges, so they're flat. So you have usually some earthquakes and earth movement. So there is a subduction area in this lake. So a piece of the sea get trapped in between the islands. So these lakes are very salty, hypersaline, and these areas are very flat, and you still see the corals on the forest land. So this area, the connection between two islands, you have some endemic fishes, salt fishes that get trapped, also crocodiles and some unusual biota. They get trapped and became isolated. And also, so the southern Paleo Island, they have a high diversity in the eastern part and also in the southwestern. And then the northern one, they have some endemic plants. So some of these are shared, but many of them are unique to the south or to the north. So the field expedition are led by Dr. Pedro Acevedo from the Smithsonian Institution and are focused on collecting the 178 endemic genera. And also we are collecting native and endemic plants and also some internet one documenting and targeting targets might include biologically diverse regions and protected areas. We have also local biologists and students participating in the expeditions, and is supported by the Global Genome Initiative. So the samples are also, beside the herbarium specimens, samples are preserved in silica gel for genomic studies, and they're going to be deposited in the Smithsonian Biorepository that will be accessible to researchers around the world for systematic studies. The plants are also documented images. There are many of these endemic genera are very local, and they have never been photographed. You only have historical herbarium specimens, so we have located many of them and taking good pictures. So the first part of the trip, we are now in Santo Domingo, which is around here in the southern part of the island. And then we travel all the way to the southwest to the Jaragua National Park, which is in the southwest part of the Dominican Republic, not the island, Dominican Republic. It is mostly dry forest of limestone, and there are many succulents and cacti in here. Yeah, I see the message from Jean. Several times, including a call to assess underground, underwater plant biodiversity. That's great. Yeah. Yeah, so this park is mostly dry limestone, but they have some underground water reservoirs. Yeah, I think I include I took pictures of a couple of them. So they have very interesting geography and geology. So many of them are succulents and cacti. You can see it's very rocky. They have these large cacti. Many of them are endemics, like these large opuntias. The genus is Consolia. They have beautiful flowers and fruits. They are important, ecologically important. You have many shrubs and bushes, most of them with spines or some toxic. You have the area is quite flat, and then you have the Bauruco Mountains at the north. This is a road. They are making a new highway right now, so they are expanding the road. So this is the old one. They're gonna make a new one. They're developing the area for tourism. So in the next 5 years, everything gonna change. So we are trying to collect many samples and plants before the tourism get increased and many areas get developed. The limestone is mostly dog-tooth limestone, the substrate. They are like layers of limestone that they have been eroded with time, and they are very sharp. Your boots get destroyed in a couple of days. The soil, because all this is very sharp and porous. So when it rains, the plants get some water, but then the water percolate down to the underground reservoirs. So many plants, they don't have water accessible at all. So they depend on the rainfall and the storing water. And some of them, they have very deep root, and they can reach underground water, which is it's not it's underground. The upper layer of rock is more fresh, but essentially it's almost a desert. And there you can see is some of them very close to the coast, and you have also the sea spray, so the salt. You have some patches without vegetation, and some of them they succeed here. They thrive, like some grasses. I think it's Unicloa virgata. Some trees and Rhodnaceae, Bignoniaceae. So the forests are actually diverse. You have Rhamnaceae, Sisyphus, and they have many endemic plants that they have been adapted to dry areas. Yeah, so we have been walking around. This is Dr. Jacqueline Salazar, Pedro Acevedo, and Hector Andújar. This is a local biologist. We have been collecting all these samples, documenting flora. So beside the Jaragua Park, we visit the Oviedo Lake. I visited that in April. That was a previous trip in mid-April. So Oviedo Lake is connected to the Jaragua National Park. Let me go back to the map to show the slide. So Oviedo Lake is around here on the eastern part of the peninsula. It's a natural lake. It has mangroves, many birds, important area for many local wildlife, fishes and birds. And it's very beautiful. You can see the Jaragua National Park all on the back with the cactus and all the xerophytic vegetation. And then you have the lake, which is freshwater, but also salty. It depends. The salinity is variable depending on rainfall. If it's a very dry season, it became very salty, and the substrate the lake look whitish because that's like a white pot, which is very characteristic. So many birds are attracted, like flamingos, for walking around. And you have also some small islands with local reptiles and animals and plants. So we went in a boat to some of these caves, documenting introduced species and also monitoring some seabirds, which use the islands to nest. So it's also important nesting area. They have some agaves and cacti right next to the lake. Some islands, they have a very interesting forest. It's almost like a garden full of tillandsias and agaves all growing together in a small caves. And there is a Canela winterana, which is a Canalaceae very aromatic, which also grows on these islands. And some islands, they have Sicura iguanas, which are Caribbean rock iguana. They're very interesting animals. They are not shy. Some of them, because the islands are protected, so people goes there and they don't harm them. So they are not shy in these islands. Otherwise, in the forest, they are very shy and they just run and hide. So you can see here, you can get almost next to them and they don't move at all, and they are curious, so they come to you to see if you have any food or something for them. But because they are wildlife, we can feed them with local leaves, but we don't give them like any human food because they are also sensitive. And most of the food they consume are local plants like mangroves. This Laguncularia racemosa, Avicennia germinans, and that's most of the diet. local mangroves or plants. Sometimes they move around so they can swim, but most of the time they stay in the same island. And some fruits are also available. They can also eat fruits like this one. It's Jacquinia arboretum. The Frastacea get very full of fruits. The tree is very beautiful. You have all these colorful fruits. Their green became orange and then brightening red, and they are consumed by birds and iguanas. Some can taste it. These iguanas, they have very tough mouths and they can eat cactus, cloudfields, and fruits. So the areas also have shrublands with Batis maritima and some other coastal vegetation, and also palms. They have this is a Leucotrinax palms, which are endemic to the region, and they are also important food source for wildlife, and also because of the nesting area, food, and also shelter. They make a small forest. But the islands, they have some conservation issues, and sometimes the areas are burned for making plantations. They cultivating some fruit like papayas or some beans, or also some people live there and they have illegal settlements, and then fires happen because of accident. So there's some conservation issues going on now in the area. And the area also have these large mats of scabiolas in front of the sea. But they have we found the native one, Scabiola pulmonarii, and they introduced one, I think it's Takata, I'm not sure if I misspell, sorry. So they introduced one from the Pacific, is now colonizing this area. So you have mixture of both of them, the coast. This is a Bahía de las Águilas in Cabo Rojo, which is more to the south. Let's see, I have a comment. Yeah, there. Steve is sending a message in the dry lines and following the Google document for the centric pathways of the species adapted to this condition. C4 and CAM more abundant. Well, we have not documented them, but I know some people have been studying, not specifically here, but some of the genera that are present here. So I can check if there's some studies specifically on this Dominican Republic area. But I know some genera, they have been adapted to the dry forest, but I don't know if any of the endemic genera they have developed a specific adaptation to regulate photosynthesis in this forest. So yeah, this area they have cliffs and very beautiful beaches and full of wildlife. People go for snorkeling. They have many fishes and lobsters and stingrays. So the area is very beautiful. That's why it's one of the priorities of developing bringing more tourism. So, and the area also has some interesting plants like this one. If you see this, before was an acacia, now it's a Parasenegalia sclerosila. It's a legume. You see this small shrub. It's a mistletoe. It's a Dendropimon rigidus, which is locally common in this dry forest, and is an important source of food for wildlife, for birds. So they grow in front of the beach in the mangrove. They're locally important. So it's one of the species I have listed. Another one is Pseudocarpidium domingensis, which is an endemic genera to the Caribbean. They're Lamiaceae. You can see the flower are highly zygomorphic, purplish, like purple bluish, and fruits are capsules. It's an endemic genera of the Caribbean. I think it's only on Cuba and Hispaniola. Another one is Celonerium ferrum, which is a Solanaceae, and they are trees, and the flowers are yellow, and the corolla is very short. This is not the the full anthesis is a bit senescent, but you can see the flower buds. The leaves are very tough, actually. They have the mid vein is really tough at the base of the mid vein. It's almost unbreakable. You cannot break it. It's almost like a lignified. Another one is Tabebuia microphylla, which is this small shrub down here. In the middle of all these thorny shrubs, you have a small Bignoniaceae with these beautiful pink flowers. The leaf has been adapted. These are from the trumpet tree family, and trumpet vine. They're related, and the flowers are big and showy. And sometimes you see like a tree, like a small bonsai, full of these beautiful pink flowers. So the next area we visit is on the Sierra de Bauruco National Park, which is on the still on the southern part of the island, but it's a bit north of the Jaragua National Park. The Jaragua is all this lowland, and then the Bauruco is going upward into the mountains here. It's like a cordillera. It's also limestone, and they have succulent and cacti, but also they have pines. So it's mostly in the high elevation, you begin to see the transition between dry forest and then dry pines with old cacti, and then you reach a pine forest in high elevation. And can be actually very cold at night. You can get some areas which are mostly pines dominant, and the roads are in the middle of pine forest. Sometimes get burned. This area get burned like 3 years ago, but they regenerate quite fast. We were able to find many endemic plants, many interesting genera around there, but sometimes the roads are not well maintained, and then trees fall after the fire. We have to open the road. So Pedro was also cutting wood. We all helped and moved the wood, and were able to cross the whole Sierra. It was a long road, but you can see here an area is called Hoyo de Torpedo, which is it happened after the collision between the two islands. Some areas get elevated, and this area get low, became like a small crater, which is below sea level, and have it's surrounded by pine forest, and you have a dry forest like full of cacti and xerophytic vegetation in the middle. So they have a visitor center, and you can see from there the whole area, which is amazing, and it's very difficult actually to access. So some botanists have visited in the past, but you have to go from a very far town, walking 3 days with mules full of water, because you have absolutely no water down there. It's very difficult to reach. So some botanists have been doing expeditions now and then, because some endemic plants live only down there in the bottom. The area also have underground rivers like this. This is on the trail. We have all these underground caves, and it's very interesting. You can have some of these sinkholes. They have been found fossils of tortoise, the land tortoise, or these rodents that were living in the islands, and some reptiles. Many fossils are still preserved in the underground sinkholes at the bottom of these sinkholes. So another interesting plant growing there at the Sierra de Bauruco is a mistletoe which grows only in pine trees. It's called Andropimon linearis because the leaves are very narrow. The fruits are shiny black, and you can see here the connection of the mistletoe connected to the stem of the pine tree. It's actually endemic to this area only, the area of the Hoyo de Torpedo. It's a very rare plant, so we found it and took a picture of it. Actually, many mistletoes are published in the area because of a high exposition to sunlight. And this is another one, which is another lineage of mistletoe related to leafy mistletoes. It's from the Santa Lacy group. In this case, it's called Androstera dominicans. It was at the very cliff of the hole of the crater. And we found individuals with paisley flower, which are the most common, and also staminate flower, which are actually very rare. Only few collection of staminate plants. For some reason, this species is more common the female ones than the male ones. So we were lucky and get both of them at the very cliff. And another mistletoe we found is the dwarf mistletoe from Hispaniola, which are, Arsutobium pusillum, and many of these Arsutobium in North America. The Caribbean only have one species, which is restricted to Hispaniola. It's this one, Bicarinatum, and it's actually quite large for a dwarf mistletoe. And we found staminate flowers. Sometimes they are full of fruits. Now they were mostly growing. They have some seasonal seasons. Now in November, most of them they grow, and then in December, January, you have many fruits. So we cut them at still in the developing stages. So we were able to see some flowers, and they're not very common. For some reason, you can find them here and there, but they don't make this huge wish broom or form the trees. Many of them are found in small pine trees. So it's interesting. It's an interesting species. After the Bauruco Mountains, we crossed down to the Enriquillo Lake lowlands, which is the lake that get trapped between when both islands collide. This area have salt lake, and it's a lowland. It's almost flat. The lake in the middle, we have a small island called Cabritos Islands, and a couple other islands which are seasonal, because the lake have fluctuation depending on rainfall. Sometimes lake increase or decrease the level. We have this is a Pamilaria, a cactus. These are corals. You can see many of them in the forest in the understory, and cacti. So we have another. Hypersonic. It's hypersonic. So it's the levels increase salinity for some reason. Salinity increase or decrease depending on the rainfall pattern. But most of the time it's hypersonic. So you have many endemic plants and animals growing across the lake, and this is a view of it, which you have the Sierra de Venga on one side and the Sierra Barroco on the other side, and then you have this piece of sea that get trapped, and after some big rainfalls, all these areas get flooded completely. So they have been towns and roads that have been relocated because the lake suddenly increased level for many meters and cover areas that have never been covered. So the limitation is variable depending on rainfall. It's a very interesting, ecologically interesting area. Hypersalinity and then fluctuating levels. You have many of the lowlands where the native sabal palms. So very tall sabal palms and roystonia. The lake, if you can see here at the bottom, all these dead trees die because the lake increased level almost down to the edge of these palms. And sometimes they cover entirely. Depends on many of the vegetation die, and some others tolerate. And then the lake get back again to the normal water level. This is another lagoon in the area. It's called the Limon, which right now is dry. Has been dry for I think it's 3 years dry, but usually it dries and get flooded again. So many fishes they lay eggs and they wait until the rainfall come back, and then in a couple of months you have the lake full of fishes again. So it's a very sensitive ecological area. It's surrounded by this dry forest and then the pine forest at the top. So it's also hypersonic. And when you touch the soil, it's mostly salt. And you have some endemic cacti like this Pereschia. It's a leafy cactus. It's what when we visit the area was full of fruits, and the fruits are green, they're ripe, kind of greenish, and then they're full of fruits, and they are dispersed mainly by the Cyclura, the rocky iguanas. They fall to the ground and iguanas sit them and disperse, and there is a small population next to the lake. It's a very it's an endemic plant, and it's kind of rare. You have to go to a couple of places. And this is another cactus. It's called Dendrocereus. I think now it's called they changed the genus to Leptocereus, but they are also arboreal. This one is about 5 to 6 meters. If I stand down, I am down to before the branches split. It's an amazing view. This is another one. It's a Consolea monoliformis. It's a tree. It's a canopy. It reach above the canopy. It can be 6, 7 meters tall, and the trunk is full of spines. They make red flowers. The fruits are eaten by the iguanas. It's a very important source for local wildlife. And you have this, the spines are in the trunk and they regenerate with time. So you have all these beautiful spines appearing here and there. Another one is a cactus, local cactus, terrible. It's called Cimidropuntia caribea. Before the spines are covered by a like a shield. It's like a papery covering the spine, and they have very barbed hairs. So when it gets into you, it's very difficult to pull out and form these very huge tickets, which are almost impossible to control. Here you have one of them. They can be almost 1 meter and they're very brittle. So when you touch them, all the spines get into you, and it's very difficult to remove. So, yeah, but very important food source for iguanas. It's an endemic species to the island. So grows only in particular habitats, but sometimes it can be very difficult to go through. Another one is the melocactus. This one is melocactus Indiana. They have beautiful pink flowers and pink fruits, and they're local. You have some local population. They're actually about I think it's 6 or 8 species of melocactus in the island. One of them in the high elevation. They are threatened because people use them for local medicine. So you see them in the store. They collect them in the wild and sell for diuretic purposes, but they are really sensitive plants. So the populations of some of them are threatened. And in this area is a protected area, and you can find more plants around this area. Another one is a species of Harisia, which is also a cactus. And the flowers are white and beautiful. They open at night, and the fruits are green and they ripe yellow. So you see, this time we didn't saw any yellow fruits, but sometimes you see the plant with these beautiful yellow balls hanging, and they are also an important food source for birds and reptiles. So this is we collect in the field. Pedro was collecting many vines, and Christopher and Hector were collecting and drying specimens. Not drying, but processing the portable trunk press and then drying in the field. So this is another view of the area. It's flat, and this area was flooded a couple of years ago, and you can still see in the background all the dead trees. But then once the lake trees, the land is fertile. So people begin planting. They have some banana plantation and some fruits around. And the local wildlife in the area is amazing. You have these cordy-tailed reptiles, many cycluras. There is a park with many cycluras in the area. People, they are tame, so you can see them you can see them in the parking lot, and people walking around, and they have laws to prevent road killings. But sometimes you see them that is unfortunate. This is a tiny mantis which I was collecting a plant, and then suddenly found it in my hand, so I took a picture. This is the town of the Berger. We stayed there for a few days. It's a quiet town, very pintoresque. In the street, they plant this endemic palm. It's called Phoenix vinifera. It's a palm. They have like a belly, so the stem gets swollen, mostly at the tip, and people use them to make some drinks. But the palm is not protected. They have a project to plant them around the city, so you have many of them planted around. Still many in the forest slope. You can see many of these palms. So very beautiful. It's a nice initiative for people to begin protecting these plants. And the Barahona region is on the eastern part of the peninsula. So you have a mountain forest. Here is an interesting plant. It's an interesting area because you have dry forest in the low elevations, and then you have a couple big mountains that get wet forest. So this is Lahore Mountain in the eastern part. This is a dry river, which is the road. Then sometimes when it rains, you cannot go to the towns. So now it was accessible. And you have the mesquite forest and the platyfolid forest, and this is a mistletoe, which is a new species. I found a population there. It's a dendropimon, and also I found this other golden shiny mistletoes along the road, which is the genus is Floradendron, like leafy mistletoes. And then in Sierra de Neiva is the northern part of the lake, Enriquillo, which also have a dry mesquite forest in limestone. You see the lake here, and some towns are down, and then going up, you have all the dry vegetation, and then at the very top of the mountain, you have a mesquite, or sometimes wet at the very tip. But most of the area is dry limestone forest. You can see here they're dominated by grasses and some shrubs. Many crotons in the forest hills with cacti and many exposed roads. In this area, they have a complex geology. Some areas they have volcanic limestone and volcanic origin, and most of them are limestone, but this area was volcanic. And this is a limestone cliff, which we went on the road going to a town in the upper part of the mountain. It's called Angel Felix. We stop along the road to see all these vines and trees. And the road is some people do some cattle. They have cattle and animals, and they take some wood here and there from the mountains. It's a local person with the wood, some agaves in the mountains, and the town is very picturesque. Most of the houses are palm tree, but the pieces of palm Rhodestonia palms. They cut the palms and they have these very long lodges pieces, and they put it all together, and they're very durable. And even the doors. This is a tree that probably some of you have seen. It's a Guaiacum officinale, Lictum vitae, which have very showy blue flowers. Sometimes they are dark blue and sometimes they are light blue. And this individual has light blue flowers. And when I looked closely, I found mistletoe growing in there. It was a Flora which is a showy mistletoe, not a leafy mistletoe. It's interesting because the fruit are verrucate, so they have these tubers on the surface, and it's kind of almost specific to Guaiacum. Sometimes in other hosts, but sometimes you see that all these Guaiacum trees with all these big shrubs of mistletoe growing on them. This is another species, Tornifortia, probably volubilis, which the fruits are or maculata. The fruits are white with these black dots. This is a very interesting fruit. This other is a monkey it's called Oceanantuosa. It's a tree. Maybe it was full of fruits, ripe fruits, and they're fleshy and tasty. And this one is another plant we collected the leaf, this limestone. And if you can see closely, this is Sapotaceae. It's called a Sideroxylon salicifolium tree. It's being parasitized by mistletoes. So they're kind of cryptic. It took a while to spot them, but then we found them and collect them. It's a Dendrophthora serpillifolia, which is a kind of it's a mistletoe which is have very few leaves. If you can see here in the picture, have small leaves, but most of the plant looks like a spaghetti without leaves. And then at the top of the mountain, we found a couple more mistletoes. It's a Dendropimon brownensis. It's a new record for the whole Sierra. It didn't have any reports so far. And then it was growing along with another mistletoe on the same tree. And it's a mulberry tree that people were cultivating. And then it's a Dendropimon alatus growing in the same area, next to each other. And then another one is called Picardy, which in this population, they have a red fruits with the tip yellow, which is very peculiar, growing on avocado trees. And the view is fantastic. This is a Lake Asui. This is a border with Haiti. We were right there at the border. I think it's behind the mountain. So this is a lake at the part of Haiti, and this is a Haiti town. So also these lands are deforested. People do agriculture. So, but still you can find some patches with native vegetation. But it's a conservation issue because many endemic plants are growing around here and the population are very fragmented every day more. So this is the Lake Asui I just showed here in the picture. And then from there, we moved from this mountain, we drove all the way to the center of the mountain, of the island, the Valle Nuevo National Park, which is around this area. The capital is here, Santa Domingo, and this area is like the central mountains. They have moist and wet habitats, and mostly pine and broad forest. This is an olive from high elevation. This we have a camouflage looking like lichens. And these interesting snails, they just walk around without the area is wet, so they don't need to hide under the shell. The mountains they have a mix of pine forest and broadleaf. And let's see, we have a comment here. Yeah, you can see Dominican from the air, deforestation. Yeah, you can see the border with a sharp delimitation. And actually, the deforestation is the border sometimes is not clear, so people can move around, and the deforestation is intense in some areas. Yeah, it's a serious issue. Yeah, so this is a central cordillera with all the high elevation mountains, and there is a valley down there. This is a broadleaf with an endemic species of magnolia. It's called Magnolia pallescens. Some Araliaceae trees, Chiflera tremula, which have a broadleaf and are the dominant species in the forest. And then you have cloud forest in the area. And in the background, you can see a lake, a small lake in the mountains. It's a dam. And this is the Constanza town. It's a valley in the middle of mountain. It's very fertile. Has a lot of agriculture down there. And then some of the mountains are very deforested because people do log wood, they harvest wood, and also do agriculture in all the area. But still, you have some pine forest around, especially in the protected area. Here you can see the transition in the broadleaf and then go up into the pine forest at the top. And then we visit one of the national parks. It's called Ébano Verde, which is Magnolia pallescens. It's a dominant species there, and you have the all many tree ferns and broadleaf, and it's very dense forest. It's a beautiful area. The trail is it's a nice trail. You can walk for hours and cross rivers, and you have all mosses, bryophytes, and ferns, and then palm trees. The local is a Perstoia acuminata, and this is a magnolia tree. When we visit, they were in fruits, so the fruits are not as big as a magnolia. It's something like a magnolia virginiana fruit, a bit larger. They have streams. People go spend the day there. They swim, but the water is very cold, so most of the time you don't want to stay too long. They have bridges, gazebos. They walk around. We collect many plants, including this mistletoe. It's called Dendrophthora versicolor, which is like it's a leafless mistletoe. The fruits can be kind of orangey or yellowish. They ripe transparent. It's a very interesting plant. And another one, which is very cryptic, is Dendrophthora cupressoides, was hidden on the top of a tree, but we spotted and collected. It's endemic species from Hispaniola in Cuba, but this is kind of sporadic. You don't find large population. You only find like a small populations here and there. So, and another interesting plant is Agalinis purpurea, which is an urban casey parasite on grasses. So it was a nice patch of them parasitizing some grasses on separation, and they have large corollas with pink flowers. And an array of mistletoes growing around there. Three species of the same genus. You can see the different type of fruits. This is endemic to the Caribbean. That's why I highlighted, and it's the one I studied. So you can see some of them, they have fruits that they are red and black. Some of them they are completely red or completely black. These ones are brownish and they turn kind of black when they are ripe. And actually, this one grows only on pine trees. This one was growing on some guava trees. This one on the Rondelete, which is a rubiaceae. And then the most showy mistletoe on the area is a Dendropimon pycnophilus, which is almost endemic to pine trees. And you have all these bunch of pink flowers, which are very showy. And the plant sometimes is very visible from distance. So you have these masses of pink flowers on top of pine trees. It's an important source for wildlife pollination and food for animals. Yeah, so this is like summary of the trip. So I want to acknowledge Pedro Acevedo, Jacqueline Salazar, Hector Andujar, Uda Martinez, and Christopher Jimenez, which were in the field collecting all these samples and drying specimens, which was very difficult to do, and we have to carry all the portable oven, and then collecting with all the equipment in the field, and it was a bit difficult, but we were able to gather. I have collected over 120 new samples of mistletoes, and Pedro collected hundreds of new genera and species. I mean, new samples of genera and species. Some other new records for the islands. Some interesting thing we need to be determined to know the identity. So we are still in the field trip, and tomorrow we're gonna go to the herbarium. And examine the specimens in there, and then visit another herbarium the day after tomorrow. So we still have work to do in the next few days. But probably we're gonna go to the field again in the weekend. So this is yeah. Work we're doing. So yeah. It's the Jean mentioned border between Dominican Republic and Haiti. Deforestation in place is not an entire border. Yeah, most of the deforestation is in the southern part of the border. But
Should we put a hand up for you? Nancy has a question.
oh yes, yes.
I like the iguana part best. It was not, it was an important opinion.
Cute, yeah.
Let's leave that up for an hour.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
How many species of iguana are there?
How many species of what?
Iguana.
Iguana.
on the
Oh,
island?
iguana. Yeah, of these rock iguanas, there are, I think there are about 15. Ciclura is a genus. And in this island, there were two of them, Ricordii and Cornuta. The Cornuta was the one to the, I think they called the Rhino iguana. And the Ricordii, they have like a red eye around. They're more exclusive. And they have these big balls with poison on the below the mouth. Some of them are tame, depending. Some of them are like pets. I have gone to places like a natural reservoir, and they walk next to you, checking if you have some food or something. But some of them are very in the wild. They can just hide. You only hear the noise of them running away. But there is a project on there is a group called Grupo Jaragua. We stayed with them, and the person we was in the field is from that group. They were doing monitoring the populations and checking what they were eating. They were restoring habitat so they can have more food in the area. Especially the planting these cacti, they feed a lot, the consolia. So we went to a place where I showed the Pereschia fruits. It's an area of conservation, it's a restoration project, and they were planting these cacti. Oh, you have an iguana there. Yeah.
Looks a little limp though.
Yeah. I think these rock iguanas, they are mostly terrestrial. Sometimes they climb a bit on the trees, but they are mostly on the ground. And they can swim. Yeah, they're very cute. You can visit some areas and you see them next to the people, just hanging out, checking if you have some fruits or something.
What do the iguana taste like?
Chicken.
Good.
Chicken.
Good.
Yeah.
Marcos, you showed a lot of photos of mistletoes, and I'm just wondering how does the diversity of mistletoes compare there and to other places?
Yeah, well, yeah, because I was collecting mistletoe for my project, so that's why I have many pictures.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, but then anyway, the Caribbean, most of these Dendropimon, they are all endemic to the Caribbean. So you can find in the Central or South America related genera, but most of them they're endemic. And they have they're unusual in having this high diversity of fruit. As you can see, they have the fruit red, orange and red, and many crazy colors. So that's something interesting. But the Dendroptera ones, the Dendropteras, all of them in that genus is they have a center of diversity in the Caribbean, mostly Cuba, and all the species are endemic to the Caribbean islands. So you have some of them in Central or South America, but they are not shared between the Caribbean and the continent. All of them are endemic. Many of them are actually poorly documented. So some of the ones I found, they're only known by a couple of specimens. We were able to find new populations. And I preserved samples in Vancouver also, because when they dry, they get all. It's difficult to dissect flowers. You have to rehydrate. So I took them in the field and just put them in alcohol. Yeah, I see a question. Steve, please.
Oh, yeah, hi, thanks. That was a great talk. I'm curious, you've had several hundred years of European colonialism, and with the current development, how much of the native forest remains?
Well, in the Dominican Republic, there is still a large percentage of forest. I don't remember exact number now, but it's something like 40% or so, 40 or 50%, because many of them are secondary forests. So they were at some point they were disturbed and then regenerate. Like today, I didn't include picture of a trip. We just came now from an area. It's a serpentine mountain. They have these rocks that they are kind of they have heavy metals, and you have some unique vegetation. The area was heavily disturbed like 50 years ago, and now many native species are coming back. So as long as the area is not like burned or severely disturbed, you can still have many plants that they slowly recolonize. So protected areas, not all of them are very heavily protected. So you have still some illegal activities of deforestation, but at least you can still find many endemic plants. Not all of them in natural reserves. We have to go to find a plant in the Loasaceae family. It's called Fortesia. In the it was in next to a road in going to a town. It's an endemic genus, having been photographed or almost collected. So we find a plant with flowers and fruits, and it's a vine. So it was a good finding, but it's not in a natural reserve. It's next to a road. So many of these plants they still need protection. So there is a lot of work to do. The first one is documenting population. So we are training new students into botany. Some of them are very good, like Christopher. He knows a lot of flora. So there are new generation of students that are working in the natural resources department. So they are now new generation growing on the having positions of promoting conservation, but this is still a lot of work to do. Let me see. Extension. Yeah, thank you, Marian. Thank you, Shruti. Yeah, and sorry I couldn't include picture from today and some error because I have been working on a presentation and during the field trip, and sometimes we have long days. So we have to arrive and then make the plant press, dry all the plants, and we have collected hundreds of species and collections. So yeah, have been intense for the last 2 weeks. But it's it's a good work, but it's intense. So I couldn't have much time to develop a presentation for them. Yeah, Rob, raise your hand.
What pollinates the mistletoe? That was Jim.
Yeah, the pink one. Do you mean? Yeah. So yeah. Thank you, Jean. Thank you for. So yeah, the pollination mistletoe is still a mystery overall. I have been observing many wasps as pollinators. So wasps seems to be the main pollinators of most of them. But there are some cases like the one with the pink flowers that we suspect they're pollinated by a tiny hummingbird in the genus Melinis, which is the second smallest hummingbird in the world. And it's really tiny. We saw it here and there flying. So in this pine forest, the mistletoe seems to be an important source of food for these hummingbirds. There are two other mistletoe with large showy flowers. And it seems to be that hummingbirds, they have a switch from insect to bird pollination, but they still haven't been confirmed. So we still need to develop more of the pollinators and breeding system of these plants. But as you can see, they have plenty of flowers, and sometimes you see them you see them with dozens of flowers open at the same time. So it's gonna be something interesting to test in the future.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
So maybe Alice recognize some of these Androphthora. You have been drawing. She draws some of them from Venezuela, so they have kind of the same morphology with these tiny flowers.
Yes, I was going to ask, are any of those in the States at all? Those mistletoes, do any of them grow in this like southern United States? The ones that you showed?
Yeah, the phorandendron mistletoes are in United States. By you have some of them by Virginia. Mistletoe. You have them in the whole southeastern U.S.
I saw a lot in South Carolina. I saw a lot where I was in kind of western South Carolina. There were a lot.
Yeah, phorandendron. The Dendrophthora is not in U.S. The Dendrophthora reach. I think it reaches up to what Costa Rica maybe or Nicaragua. I think, but the genus doesn't go all the way up. But phorandendron, it's a different lineage, but it is you can recognize many of the structures the same. Yeah, and but the other group of mistletoe, they are not in North America. They reach Mexico, but they don't go further up. They're most sensitive to cold probably.
Opium is,
Matter of time,
there's opiums in the States also.
Yeah, Texas for sure.
Opium is in New Mexico and Texas, at least.
Yeah. The Arstotomium is an exception. Is actually the species in Hispaniola is sister in the phylogeny. Is play sister to Arstotomium pusillum from eastern U.S. Pusillum is very tiny, and then you have this bicarinatum, which is like triple size, and it's interesting how this species reached Hispaniola. It's not on Cuba. It's not in Bahamas. It's like isolated in the middle of the Caribbean. So it's one of these enigmas we still have. Seems to be, it's probably some matter of extinctions, maybe. But the plant is interesting because it's all purple. Pusillum, the sister species, is like a creamy color, and the type on Abies in this spruce. Yes, Ed.
Oh, you saw my hand.
Oh, yeah.
I was wondering if you would. I'm just wondering, are mistletoes primarily shrubs? Are there any herbaceous ones? How are they classified in that way?
Well, most people classify them as aerial shrubs. So
Oh, okay.
Hemiparasitic aerial shrubs or hemiparasitic epiphytic shrubs. Because some of them are like, they are woody at the base. Most of them are woody. You can see secondary growth.
Okay.
The main stem is woody, but so they are not really a herb. But because they form these huge balls, some of them they can be 1 or 2 meters, and some of them have hanging branches or they can be rounded. So it's like a shrub. Yeah.
What about those tiny arsus? I forget the genus name, but yeah, the tiny ones you find, say, in northern Michigan. Are those still shrubs? They're only an inch tall at the most.
Yeah, most of them they don't have woody development in the shoots.
Okay.
So probably they are you can mention as a herb, but they have a part of the tissue is endophyte, so it's inside the stem. They have a big endophyte down there. But if you cut all these little stems, then they resprout. So yeah, I don't know if you can call them herb, but at least some of them they're big. They can be like a bushy. Yeah. So
what's eating the mistletoes in your study area? Up here we have, in the Washington area, we have a hair-streaked butterfly that consumes the leaves as a caterpillar.
Yeah, so in the Caribbean, basically nothing is known. They have associated ants and hemiptera, and some insects are associated to them, and sometimes I see larvae and some, not butterflies, but they have some larvae. I haven't. I don't know if they are from butterflies actually, because many insects are still unknown. So I have collected a few of them, but I don't have the full stages. So that's something I would like to study in the future. I have seen studies in Africa about the diversity, the fauna associated to mistletoes, like the situation with the caterpillars and the butterfly in North America. But we basically don't have information yet. That's something we need to develop.
Thanks. I'm glad I heard your talk. It took me to another world today.
Yeah, okay, sure. It's the tropical Caribbean. So, let's see. Taking me back to Dominican Republic. Yeah, hi, Jean. So yeah, it's a. So did you visit the southern part only, or did you went to another?
No,
I'm sorry, I
yeah,
didn't. Oh, okay.
it took me back, yeah, to that part of the, the southwestern part of the Dominican Republic. But I've also worked in another part of the country in Bahia de Samaná.
Ah, yeah.
So, but your visit really it really took me back to that, that part of the island, to that part, to the southwestern part of the Dominican Republic. So characteristic, the landscapes.
Yeah,
plants.
yeah.
Mhm.
Because it's a dry. It's very recognizable, all these cacti and the limestone plateau and all that. So they're making now an airport. They're gonna make an airport now. So they are an international airport, and then now they're building, expanding roads, and they're gonna start building hotels. So it's gonna be a large development in the next 5 years. So the area.
Yeah. Did you collect on? Did you visit Isla Beata, and which is part of the Jaragua National Park? We collected around there as well, but I was wondering if you were there as well. Isla Beata. You could see it clearly on the map that you showed.
Yeah. So I haven't visited the island, but that's a plan for the next. I think the next trip or next 2 trips. So we need to coordinate well. I have another of the group went there to collect one endemic plant from that island, and I know there is a mistletoe there only, but I haven't gone. So it needs some coordination because reaching the island is not easy. There is only a temporary population of fishermen who live there, but nobody lives on the island. You need to carry a lot of water and also, yes, hopefully in the next few years we're gonna go there.
There wasn't, as you started to say, there was not much tourist infrastructure. Well, when I was there wasn't much tourist infrastructure in Jaragua National Park at all. And but did you mention there's a lot more now, or?
No, it's on the way. So the area is beautiful, and it was little tourism going there. So now they're gonna make an international airport and starting building hotels. So they are making the delimitation of land partitioning and so all the area will be developed. And in Cabo Rojo, they're gonna make also a port for cruise ships to bring many tourists. So the whole area will change. They're gonna have many hotels, cruise, airport, and large roads. Not only two lanes, probably 4 or more lanes. So like a highway. So in the next 5 years, it's on the way now. So when we went in April, they were throwing down the trees and expanding the road, and now they're still doing some work. So yeah, it will change a lot. So if you have the chance to visit before all the big tourism happens, then it's a good time now. And I see Christopher is here. Christopher Jimenez is a local student from and now he's working at the Environment Ministerio Medio Ambiente, which is a natural resources department. He was with us in the field, and he's very good botanist. He's interested in many good plants and also ferns, bryophytes, and all type of plants. He's an excellent student. Yeah. Is there any other questions or?
Thank you very much. Wow.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks for being president. Thanks for being a great talk.
Yeah,
Thank you. Be safe, Marcos. Fascinating talk. Nice.
Great talk. Yeah. Great talk.
Enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna be tomorrow. Gonna go to the herbarium in the National Botanic Garden and check specimens from these plants. Some populations we couldn't find a few species, so we're gonna talk to the local botanists and check specimens to see if during the weekend we can do a short trip to find these endemic genera that we couldn't find. And so we still have more field work and herbarium work. So we're gonna visit three herbarium probably in the capital. There are 3 of them. There are 4 herbaria in the island, and one of them is in Santiago, and 3 in the capital in Santa Domingo. So we're gonna go to the Botanic Garden and then to the university, National Autonomous University herbarium, and another herbarium nearby. With many collections from Alain Diogier, who was a botanist who did the flora of Hispaniola in the 80s. He deposited many specimens there. So hopefully we're gonna find interesting specimens with more localities to locate some of these endemic genera we couldn't find. Many of them are in Asteraceae. So some of them are vines, some of them are shrubs. We find some interesting ones like Eupatorina, which is a tiny herb, and we find also Legmanianti, which is an asteroid with yellow flowers. That was yesterday. So it was exciting. We find many, and Rubiaceae manetia vine. We find. Yeah. Hopefully the specimens will be soon in the museum in the Smithsonian.
Are you coming to visit the Smithsonian anytime?
Sorry, what?
Are you coming to visit the museum anytime here?
Yeah, in January. I'm gonna get back on the 13th to Philadelphia, and then at some point, I think in January, because my badge expired in November, so I need to renew, and I couldn't find appointments. So I'm gonna do it in January, beginning January to get back. So Pedro will be also back in January. So hopefully they will send the specimens in the next few months. So we're gonna have to start identifying. We finished already identifying the ones from the first trip in 2019. So we find some new records for the islands and many interesting things. I think there were more than 200 specimens. To 300. I think Pedro collected 350 or something. And I collected about I think there were 100 musicals. But I need to have more samples from another one to compare. So yeah, the island is very rich. It's very interesting, especially the southern part, the border with Haiti, where the area has been fully explored, and it's a hotspot of diversity in the island. And Ken, we found today Euphorbiaceae is called, let's see if I remember the name. The species is globosa. What was CH? Begin with CH, and the species is globosa. I forgot now the genus because it's a tree on the serpentine forest. It was kind of common, but we get a good specimen from that one. Okay, so did you already finish dinner in the Dominican Republic? Okay.
Yeah, I was enjoying some arepa dulce while you were talking. I had it with flan. It was like the best flan I ever had. Like most flan is like really watery, but this stuff from the Dominican restaurant was very rich. It must have had a tremendous amount of calories.
Oh, yeah. That was our lunch today, actually going down from the mountains. There is a small town called Caraballo-Ortiz, and you have along the road many of these small vendors selling it's like a pudding, like a bread, and it's huge. It's like a cake, and then you eat a piece of that, and you get enough food for not to be hungry for hours. So
Yeah, it's hearty stuff.
yeah. Arepa dulce. And there is also arepa salada, the salty one, the salty version and the sweet version.
Oh,
Yeah, I tried both of them. I like more the sweet because it's not super sweet, but the other one is a bit sour, on the sour side. But some people enjoy more the salty one. So yeah, you see along the road, many of we saw like 20 of them. I think people have preferences of which one they choose. But all of them, they have these huge cakes of arepa, and then you as the person, they open and cut and give it to you right there on the car, like a Servi car. How do you call it? That window on the fast food.
yeah, serving window. I don't know.
Servi window is a Servi
Yeah.
car.
I'm sure it's good food for the field. Yeah. You're not going
Yeah.
hungry while collecting.
Yeah, you can put in the backpack and doesn't go wrong. It's like you can take it to. But,
Excellent.
yeah, so thank you. Yeah, Pedro is here. Pedro, want to say hello? Yeah, Pedro, right?
Everyone.
Hi, Pedro.
Yeah. Was talking to Gabe about the arepas we ate on the way. The arepa dulces.
Yes, nice food too. Everything's it's wonderful.
That was a great talk. Thank you. Great talk.
Okay, sure. Yeah, we're gonna have dinner. We're gonna have dinner now. So okay, thank you.
Buen
Thank you,
provecho.
Marcos.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a
Good night.
happy
Bye.
holiday.